Let's do this. Okay, that was a warm up reading a minute ago. Now let me get to this. Hello, viewers. Another beautiful day. Yep. Hope your five senses work, health, and strength is good or excellent. What? What's up, gamers? Listen up, you Dreamcast fan. So you and Nvidia formed a partnership back in the day, back in '96. Listen to this. Nvidia nearly went bankrupt. No, Nvidia nearly went out of business in 1996, trying to make Sega Dreamcast GPU instead. Sega of America CEO offered the company a $5 million lifeline. And then it says, apparently the Sega Dreamcast almost sunk two companies. It says, looking at Nvidia's success today as the world's third most valuable company, you may be surprised to know that the company nearly collapsed completely in 1996. Just 3 years after its was founding, only generosity from a Sega executive at the time saved Nvidia from the graveyard, according to the Wall Street Journal. This is particularly surprising considering that Sega itself wasn't far from bowing out of the console business. In fact, this likely contributed, but its plans an early seed for Nvidia future in the hardware industry as a leading PC GPU provider and Nintendo go-to SoC manufacturer. So how exactly did Nvidia end up getting such a reprieve from Sega? It actually stems from the history of the Sega Dreamcast, which Sega initially went to Nvidia to develop the GPU for while Nvidia following work in the low-power GPU may have helped the company make more powerful, efficient chips down the line. These low-power graphics were ultimately not up to the spec that Sega needed for cutting-edge Dreamcast ahead of its release. Says here, thus the conclusion of the Sega Nvidia contract seems to be doomed to failure for both parties. Nvidia had spent a lot of time and money on R&D and had nothing acceptable to show for it, which put Nvidia CEO Jensen Huang in an unenviable position. He wound up coming clean to Sega about not having their needed graphics card hardware, but still asked for payment despite this. Says and ultimately Nvidia was still paid for its failed attempt at making the Dreamcast GPU, thanks to then CEO of Sega of America, Shoichiro Irimaki. When Huang came to Sega with the unfortunate news, he asked to still be paid in full for the contract, lest their company goes out of business. The answer picked by Irimaki, and Sega wound up being a $5 million investment into Nvidia. Since Irimaki had previously met Huang and taken a liking to him, while Irimaki eventually stepping down from executive position at Sega, then it says in parentheses, and was briefly president of the whole company, not just the U.S. branch, close parentheses. This investment was cashed out for $15 million afterwards, helping keep Sega stable as the company departed the console business. Now, one can't help but wonder, would today's gaming and hardware be drastically different if Nvidia had actually succeeded in creating a Dreamcast appropriate GPU? Says the Dreamcast features includes online connectivity, were still very cutting edge at the time of its release, beginning to blur the line between gaming console and gaming PC. However, the Dreamcast problem didn't really have anything to do with its internal hardware. So there's a non-zero chance Sega would have exited the console business either way. And then it says, of course, Nvidia wound up with the 5 million it needed, thanks in part to the power of friendship. And Sega tripled its investment in the process. But who knows if desperation hadn't pushed Nvidia to make its first truly successful GPU following Sega last minute investment save. Maybe Nvidia today would be recognizable. No, maybe Nvidia today wouldn't be recognizable at all. Well, we know. Okay, we know that the Dreamcast, it didn't change with the times. Sega didn't change with the times. The Dreamcast. So the Dreamcast needed a DVD player. That's all it needed. But now, with Nvidia now in this whole situation now, it probably was a stepping stone, you know, and Sega like saving Nvidia. You know, it probably was a stepping stone for Nvidia. You know, before, you know, they start like getting real serious about, you know, about GPUs. And you know, they had a good little partnership, you know, and all good things come to an end. So Nvidia, Sega, you know, saved Nvidia. Nvidia made you know, but this is us. This investment was cashed out for 15 million afterward, helping keep Sega stable. Okay, well, Nvidia and Sega. Just imagine if Nvidia had one. Just imagine if Sega was around right now, and you take an Nvidia GPU and hook it up with one of those boards, Naomi boards. Yeah, that would be something, man. Nvidia and Sega, but the article talks about the power of friendship, you know. So at least the president of Nvidia, he was honest because he came clean and expressed, you know, told Sega what he thinks, expressed his concern, and yeah, he had to do that, you know, to keep Nvidia afloat. So yeah, but the partnership, you know, came to its end, and you know, Sega helped Nvidia, you know, in this game industry. You know, Nintendo helped Sony made the PlayStation. Sega helped Nvidia. Yeah, I got 4 comments here, man. Look, somebody said in the comment section, listen to this. He said, I got 4 comments. He said, Dreamcast was ahead of its time, which, because it's a really enjoyable console, I still own mine. If Sega would have released it around the PS3 time instead of PS2 with the tech a lot of more advanced, especially networking, Dreamcast likely would have sold very well. VMU, then it says, also was a fun little thing where you could put mini games on a memory card and play them. Everyone play them anywhere, like in the back seat of a car while on a trip. Somebody says everyone will remember it for feeling, but only those who had one knows how fun they were. Alright, someone else here says Dreamcast was ahead of its time. No, someone responded to that comment. He said the Dreamcast primary problem was the SW support. Devs were just tired of the short shelf life of Sega's hardware post the Genesis, for example. EA didn't support the Dreamcast, leading to the creation of 2K Sports by Sega. then as a result, once the PS2 hit the Dreamcast, was cooked. HW, the Dreamcast was arguably the second most powerful console of its generation. And then someone says, if they had not cashed out, how much would that investment be worth now? Yeah, good question. Someone else here says, no, it wasn't. Dreamcast was a mid-step in the 6th generation and ended being the weakest. Many of its games found their home in Xbox. Moore went on to admit that the Dreamcast was ahead of its time and ultimately lost out to PlayStation, but the baton was passed to Xbox, with Sega also choosing to collaborate with Microsoft as a third-party publisher. That's true. And then he leave the link. Well, powered by Windows CE. Well, if Sega would have kept their money with Nvidia, let's say if they never withdrew it, $5 million from 1996 till now. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money when you really think of it. You gave them $5 million and you never like took the money out. You let it sit there for like 1996 or 96 for almost 30 years. Whoa, that's a lot of money, man. Yeah, Sega would be sitting on some nice money. So yeah, the Dreamcast was ahead of its time for the time being, but it didn't change with the times, you know. So yeah, so PS2 was the first DVD system on the market, and it took off. DVDs killed videotapes. Videotapes is dead. Goodbye. You know, but Sega teamed up and gave Microsoft the keys to the kingdom. Powered, if you look on the Dreamcast, powered by Windows CE. Yeah, that was the handshake. So yeah, so you could say the original Xbox is probably Dreamcast too. So yeah, but Sega left the console business and gave the keys to Microsoft. Microsoft took the keys and ran with it and started the car and drive it. So yeah, it's part of the business, man. But Sega helped Nvidia and Sega helped Microsoft. So Sega helped Nvidia, Sega helped Microsoft. Sega helped Microsoft and Nvidia. Bottom line, when you really look at this article, you know, not everything starts off smooth, but yeah. What this also teach you too is about how the stock market work. A $5 million investment. Yeah, and at the height, and plus Nvidia just invested in AI too. They made $2 trillion. So a $5 million investment in Nvidia, and now we're into AI. Sega would have some money, man. Some good money. Yeah, they would have some good money. 1996, $5 million investment, and let it sit there. Don't even take it out. And then you're talking about AI now, and Nvidia is a $2 trillion company. So what is $5 million investment in a company that you invested in made $2 trillion off AI? Yeah, you know, it's the same. Like, let's say, take I could use Pixar for a minute. Let's say you had put $1,000 or $5,000 in Pixar and let it sit there, and then when Disney buys Pixar, you'll be sitting on some money. So what this teaches you is about how to buy stocks. Is not to give up on a stock just because. Not to give up on it. It teaches you a lot of things. This article teaches you a lot of things about business. That's all I can tell you on this. You know, but Sega helped Nvidia, and Sega helped Microsoft, basically. in a nutshell. You know, Sega helped Nvidia. Nvidia is a $1 trillion company, and Sega helped Microsoft. Microsoft is a $1 trillion company. Yeah. If Sega would have invested $5 million in Nvidia and $5 million in Microsoft and just let it sit there, Sega would be sitting on some serious cash. That's for sure. Yeah. So this article, Sega helped Nvidia and Microsoft. Bottom line. That's all this comes down to. That's all this entire article comes down to. I mean, Sega helped Nvidia and helped Microsoft. And you know, Sega might not be here in the console business anymore, but they're still here making games, so they're still in the game industry. But they gave the hardware to the bigger boys. You know, they gave Microsoft and Nvidia. They're good. So yeah, that's all I can say, man. But yeah, Sega, they helped a lot of companies. You know, look, man, a company has to start from somewhere. A company has to start from somewhere. And when you're starting from the bottom, you know, things, all the stuff that needs to happen at the bottom happen at the bottom. But when you start climbing and get to the top, yeah, it's not as the same as starting from from the bottom, you know. So yeah, Nvidia, Sega, Sega helped Microsoft and Sega helped Nvidia. Bottom line. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the video. Nice talking to you people again. Chris, Star Wars and Star Trek thing. Board, Dark Side.